Today, during an oversight hearing with Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, Texas Congressman John Ratcliffe exposed what this week's congressional hearing on gun violence was. That it wasn't actually about solutions towards gun violence. It looked more as though, at least by the lawmakers there in attendance, as though it could be a political stunt. Watch.
Earlier this week, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle indicated that they had a great desire to reduce gun violence in this country. In fact, we had an 8-hour hearing with 6 witnesses that talked about the need to reduce gun violence in this country. We started this hearing at 9:30 this morning. It's now 12:30 in the afternoon, and I haven't seen you field a single question from the other side of the aisle about any of the enforcement priorities of the Department of Justice. Despite the fact that you are the head of an organization that has a greater ability to impact and reduce gun violence than anyone or anything in the country. So I may be the only person today that wants to ask you a question about that, but I'm going to use the remainder of my time for that purpose.
Exactly. Jerry Nadler and Eric Swalwell and the rest of their House Judiciary anti-2A Democrats, if they cared about the families, the victims' families that they threw into the spotlight, why would they not ask any of these questions? If they cared about solving gun violence, why would they not ask any of these questions? See, because if they had asked them, they would have used today's they could have used today's oversight hearing to ask what's being done to reduce gun violence at the Department of Justice. Can I just bring up one particular case here? Because I noticed none of this came up either. Just to bring up, because remember how I just spoke earlier about Kamala Harris and how on her watch prosecutions for felony gun crimes, and we're talking heinous crimes. We're talking about people who are repeat offenders, who are in illegal possession of a firearm, who are continuing commission of crimes. We're talking drug sales, assaults, etc. These individuals received the lightest of sentencing possible, repeat offenders, if their crimes were prosecuted at all while Kamala Harris was AG. Now, federal gun prosecutions actually, when Jeff Sessions became AG, the Department of Justice under the new administration's watch began taking a different approach from the previous 8 years under the previous administration. And in fact, federal gun prosecutions increased 23% under President Trump. So I would think that that was something that maybe perhaps would be brought up in this House oversight hearing. If you are truly concerned about reducing gun violence, you would have discussed how this plays in part to reduce that. They would have spent at least as much time asking about it as they did whatever newfound conspiracy about Donald Trump they came up with today. And if Nadler and Swalwell cared about gun violence, if they truly cared about reducing quote-unquote gun violence, if they truly cared about making sure that justice was achieved for victims' families, if they wanted to make sure that this didn't happen again, maybe they would have asked this question.
I was at the Department of Justice. We had a very successful initiative called Project Safe Neighborhood. It was a program that took guns out of the hands of criminal offenders. It was a successful program that was killed by the Obama administration. The Obama Justice Department ended it. I understand that it has been reinstated during the Trump administration. I'd like you to inform us about its progress, as well as any other measures or programs or enforcement priorities of the Department of Justice with respect to reducing gun violence in this country.
That is an excellent question. Why did the previous administration end Project Safe Neighborhood? Why have none of these gun advocacy groups asked about why it was ended either? Why were there no protests over that? Why no questions? I mean, this Project Safe Neighborhood, this was a program that took firearms out of the hands of people who should not have legally been able to possess them, dangerous individuals, repeat offenders. If Jerry Nadler cared about gun violence, quote-unquote gun violence, these so-called concerned congressional members would have asked questions like this. Why did the Obama administration put guns in the hands of criminals through Project Fast and Furious, but then in the program, Project Safe Neighborhood, that took guns out of the hands of criminals? And what is the DOJ doing to fix it? Why was that question, why has it never been asked, particularly by anti-gun advocacy groups? If Eric Swalwell, if he was concerned about preventing another mass casualty incident, then he would ask, particularly as it relates to schools, how the president's school discipline policies, helped to empower a mass murderer, and ask what the DOJ is doing now to fix it. Well, we could go on and discuss this further. This conversation is still being had in Parkland. But the point is that these people, if they cared about reducing gun violence, they would have asked these questions. They would have searched for these truths. Instead, they call you terrorists. They say that you, who are parents, we're all parents, that we don't care about children because we have a different means to go about keeping them safe. In fact, the only thing that they talk about is ending the NRA or taking semi-automatic firearms out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. It seems all they discuss is disarming us, the law-abiding. But it's what they've always wanted. They'll use hearings, they'll use whatever is necessary to achieve the ends to their means. And of course, the media is not going to show you how Congressman John Ratcliffe exposed Jerry Nadler, Eric Swalwell, and the anti-gun House Judiciary Committee as frauds in this matter. Where were these genuine questions? Where were the solutions during these hearings?